what are you a doctor of?
Primary care and psychiatry.
Primary care and psychiatry?
Yes.
Okay, and so how many children do you have now?
I have 2 boys that are living.
They're living.
Yes.
And was your daughter the first
She was
child?
my youngest.
She's your youngest, okay.
Yeah.
So, when you were pregnant with her, what was your thoughts on vaccines then?
Well, I had 2 close friends who questioned them, but and I listened, very non-judgmental, but I decided to talk to my pediatrician about it and go to the CDC website. And then I was just kind of overwhelmed with the decision. And really, when I brought it up with my pediatrician, he said, well, you can't be in my practice if you don't vaccinate. And I said, oh, you're right, that's not fair to the rest of the world.
So when you were training to be a psychiatrist, a doctor, did any vaccine conversation ever come in on, I don't know why it would, but did you ever learn anything about it?
No. In medical school, immunology classes, you really don't. You learn the science of antibodies and things like that, but you don't learn anything about what makes up a vaccine, or you're just told this is the schedule. And I actually did family medicine my intern year. As an osteopath, you have a really broad training, so you are a primary care physician, and it was just routine. They would come in and get vaccinated, and if a baby was brought back in having a problem, I would have had absolutely no idea to consider that it could have been a vaccination reaction.
So you had 2 older boys?
Yes.
And they were, I presume, vaccinated on time?
They were. My younger one, actually, he is just 2 years apart from Victoria, and I ended up, because of his speech delay, my older one was delayed and has auditory and visual processing issues, attention issues, peanut allergy, all sorts of environmental and food allergies, asthma, the gamut that every kid has these days, unfortunately. But I never considered a vaccine reaction. Now I started listening to these 2 friends of mine with my younger son and delayed his 18-month vaccinations. So he was being vaccinated right around the same time that Victoria was, because I decided to resume them after we had moved and established with this new doctor out in South Tulsa. And he actually had a reaction at that time, a week before Victoria did, where he couldn't lift his head off of the pillow. I clearly remember that.
So Victoria was 6 months old when she passed away, yes?
She was almost 6 months when she passed away. And so I didn't vaccinate her in the hospital. She got her 2-month, and she was absolutely perfectly healthy. She got her 2-month vaccinations, and it was at that time that things changed, but I was in complete denial. Did not consider at all that it was the vaccination. But I remember coming home one day and just looking. She was in her little swing that we put her in, and looking in her eyes, and she just wasn't there. We weren't connected. And of course my first thought was, oh my gosh, I leave her at home too much with the nanny, things like that. And then she started slowly, her tongue would protrude and her eyes just seemed fuzzy, and one eye began deviating inward. And so then 6 weeks after her 2-month vaccinations, she had an episode. It was a snow day. We had lived on a big hill at the time. It was really icy, and she screamed, and I ran in and got her, and she was blue, and I tried to get her to come to, and I picked her up, and I called out to Cynthia, who was our nanny at the time, and told her to call 911. And by the time the fire department came, because the roads were so bad, by the time they got there, I just answered the door and I said, she's doing okay, I think I overdid. And that was that. A week later, we see the pediatrician. Now we're revaccinating her. I think that was December 23rd. And, that was just wiped off to nothing. And no workup was done, and vaccinated her then. And then I remember Christmas Eve, her tongue just shot out of her mouth. In hindsight, after she passed away, then it was 6 weeks after that, she started not responding. She would spit up a lot. Her belly became very protruded. She couldn't track. But of course, I'm in complete denial. I would sit her, I would make these smoothies in the morning and run the blender, and she would not even respond, where my boys would come and be like, turn it off. Mm-hmm. And you look at me and you're like, how did you not know something was going on? But I feel like every mother in the world, that you can't possibly imagine. I was so naive that I thought there was really no way in heck that we would ever give something to our most precious right. thing in the world, our children, who are going to carry on society, that would be harmful and that wasn't studied to the full. It's just, I mean, my eyes have opened to this world. I'm naive in a lot of areas. I really trust in the greater good of things truthfully, and in everything. And so that has been the biggest grieving part for me, is not her passing away, because immediately when I got the phone call, I knew she was good. I knew she was absolutely good. It was the reality of where we are in this country, in the world, and that people's eyes are closed. And
what do you mean by you got the phone call? What phone call from who?
So I was out of town, and Victoria was at my nanny's house, who was just lived very close to us, and she got up that morning and ate normally, and then it was about 10 a.m. and she was upright in her little swing, I can't think of the name of it, and the nanny went in to pick her up to change her, and she was just gone. And up until that time, she had been sleeping more during the day, but up at night very fussy, and there's so many things I hold myself responsible for, maybe not communicating well enough with the nanny or things like that, but I also believe that God has a bigger plan, and it went exactly how it was supposed to go.
And did you get the police getting involved?
So the police came, yeah, and my nanny ended up having to go to the hospital several times for just panic attacks, and it was terrible. And so that was a Saturday morning, and then Sunday I'm like, well, I need to call my pediatrician, at least let him know, of course he'll care, right? And I called him and told him what had happened, and he said, well, come see me in the office next week. So we made an appointment for that Wednesday, and I was hanging in there, doing fine, excited to talk to the pediatrician, and they called and canceled the appointment. So I tell myself, oh, well, he just wants to do the latest research and figure things out, so he's getting prepared to talk to me. And then I go, and so in the meantime, I'm getting my my boys' EKGs, because of course you want to rule out cardiac issues. And so I go in, and I walk in, and I see the EKGs sitting to the left, and he looks at me and he says, well, there's several babies died last week. And I was like, okay. And he said, and your nanny was with her? I mean, I would consider homicide in this case.
Are you kidding?
Oh, absolutely not kidding. This is when the world changed for me. And
what an absolute bastard.
Totally.
I'm sorry, I cannot think of another word.
I can't.
Ruin someone else's life.
And to not, I mean, if a patient came to me, I ended up writing, I chilled out, wrote him a letter 6 weeks later that said, I want you to know the experience I had in your office that day. So accused her of homicide, and then said to me, pointed to the EKGs and said, let's focus on the 2 kids that are living. And I was like, wow.
That is disgusting.
It is. It's disgusting. And now I have my own clinic. Now I understand what these office visit means, and it's the economics of it. I was just blindsided. But anyway, so I left there just absolutely devastated. Charged me for every medical record that I wanted. I wrote him a letter 6 weeks later and said, I want you to know my experience as a mother, a physician, and a child that just passed away. And I had no intention ever holding you responsible. I needed compassion. I needed to sit and talk to somebody. I mean, I would have, at least from a patient of mine, I mean, that would have eaten me up, and I would have done the research, which I do, and at least come up with something, to anything except that. And so that was huge, and disgusting. I mean, truly, but it's the way it is today, and it makes me sad. I remember being at a conference where Dr. McCullough was tearful, because he learned after vaccinating so many babies that the truth. And I mean, just it's really sad, and I don't have a bad view of all pediatricians or all physicians who support vaccination. It's the fact that they haven't done the research, because their views would change so quickly if they really saw the science and understood how a cell works and what these toxic metals do and the immune reaction that takes place. I mean, it's just so obvious, and the science is there, and I'm happy to to explain it to him, but I definitely, so then I go on my journey of, the medical examiner was awesome. He was awesome. He talked me through it. There was, everyone in the family has different reactions. Oh, she choked on her bottle, she did this, and the medical examiner was like, that is absolutely not the case. Walked through it. I start going, well, did you do this test? Did you do this test? Oh, no, we can't do good brain studies. We don't have the equipment to do that. Did you do a muscle biopsy, to look for aluminum? And, oh my gosh, no, you can't do that. And, but he was great. He at least walked me through it. And so once, they rule out, did mom poison the baby? Did the baby get something through breast milk? Was there, a vascular hemorrhage? Was there a big obstructing mass? They don't look at anything that's cellular and toxic. That is really what's going on. And so I very quickly started just researching everything. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, there's books written on this stuff. Like, this is well known. That was just shocking to me. It was crazy. And then, by the grace of God, I got introduced from people who were really informed. Leslie Manukian, who did The Greater Good, and then she connected me with Barbara Lowe Fisher, and then I really got to understand what's going on, and I was so just like, oh my gosh, I've got to tell the world. I got to tell my community. I mean, I don't want to see other kids injured. It wasn't me not accepting that my daughter had passed away. I mean, she was and is in a better place, 100%. And there was more. She's accomplished more in her little lifetime than I have, certainly, and will ever, in that little 6 months she was alive. But so then, I put together this fundraiser. People, I look back and I can see how, silly that might look to others, but it was the right thing to do.
And what was that?
It was something called Valentine's for Victoria. We live in a real philanthropic community, and so NVIC, it went to benefit the National Vaccine Information Center, and so we did that 2 years in a row. It was a lot of work. It was really encompassed me, and I was so upset with the medical community that I now was really focused on how do I heal my kids, and so took them to doctors who are informed about getting the toxins out of their body, and so went put together a gluten-free kitchen and wanted to teach moms. It's so hard to cook. It was a little crazy because I'm not a cook at all, but it was an event and experience, and that went on for a little while, and so I really focused on helping my own children, and then was just like, I've got to go back to what I know how to do and get out of that world. So I go back to practicing mainstream psychiatry, and I just start seeing child after child, adult after adult, that is just chronically ill. It's metabolic issues. It's not, now it's very clear chronic disease and psychiatric symptoms are just a symptom of chronic disease. And so then that's where I just can't write another prescription for Risperdal to get a kid back in school. Just give a kid a stimulant and they're suicidal. It's just one medication after another. And so then I started to try and really help them nutritionally and learning all of that.
Are you allowed to do that as a psychiatrist? Doesn't everyone have to stay in lane?
Well, so I'm an osteopath, and actually one of the osteopathic tenets is healing by nutritional
There you go.
means, and using what God gave us to heal our bodies and to remove toxins from our bodies. That is a tenet of osteopathic medicine. And so that's my in there, and then you just have to risk and benefit the patient. And you have so many parents coming in today who, please help me. I don't want my child on another medicine. It's harmed them. Now they have diabetes. They weigh 180 pounds, and so, but then that became all-encompassing,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm lucky that I wasn't the primary breadwinner of the family, because I really wouldn't have been able to make it, and so then eventually I had to leave there because my poor friend who gave me a job, well, she would have let me stay forever, but I needed to go give it to more people, and it was too much for me. I was doing primary care, adults, and I'd say, okay, go to your primary care, have them do this test and this test and this test, and then they come back, they won't do this, they won't do that. So I had to learn all the coding, it's been interesting, but I mean, it's just a whole path. And finally, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to open my own clinic, and I wanted to be closer to my house so I could take care of my family and do all that. And
so where's your clinic?
So it's in Tulsa at 101st and Yale. It's called Verum Health. And
how do you spell that?
Verum. And so it's kind of a new model of medicine. There's a lot of literature that supports combining psychiatric and chronic illness together, and where we can really save in healthcare costs $40 billion a year, because all of these diseases have the same kind of mechanism of it's all cellular nutrition and toxins that have disrupted our cellular functioning. So what I had to do is bring in the psychiatry together with a nurse practitioner that could really deliver the primary care needs, and then we give our patients both nutrient options as well as mainstream medication options. Then along this journey, so I'm going through genetics, and it's really time consuming, but I end up at a conference and meeting really the top integrative doctors in the world, Dr. Mitch Ginn, and he has just started kind of a mentorship program, and so he's taken me under his wing. And it's it's only a higher power that directs all of that, but that's allowed me now to have this smooth transition where we can do this lab that is so inclusive, and then come back with the recommendations that really target the big picture and can decrease the chronic inflammation. And if you're given all the options, if you want to test for heavy metals and do this, then you can go on and do IV treatment. But before people, my biggest thing was everyone needs to have options, not just everybody that can pay for it. And so the insurance companies have been a big deal. But anyway, so that's kind of the whole journey of I can't even help myself. I can't help my children. I can't go to anybody.
How old are your boys now?
So 16 is my older one, and my youngest is 10, almost 11.
And how are they doing?
And my oldest one, they're doing...
Did they remember Victoria's death? How old were they?
Definitely. Yeah. My youngest one was there at the house when she passed away, and saw IMSA come, and he'll bring that up. But they're very informed about vaccinations and what can happen, and how it's affected their own bodies. Of course, I've done all the testing on them, and my older one is the one who has struggled the most with visual and auditory processing, and has a really hard time learning, but he is just the social butterfly. And so at all levels of the spectrum, so to speak, you have your difficulties. No one knows that he struggles so much, and he's so literal, and he actually went away to a military academy this year so he could be just more structured, and where I'm focused on getting the aluminum, the mercury, and the lead out of his body.
Does he want to be in the military?
No, he doesn't want to be. He's football. He's gravitated towards football, which of course has its own, here we have this, traumatic encephalopathy, which is basically what's happening to these kids with brain inflammation is encephalopathy. So but he's had such a hard time in school. He's felt that's his only area of succeeding. And so he right now he's learning that he is successful in many areas.
As a psychiatrist, can I ask you a question? Because I'm not normally very nice about psychiatrists. I
understand,
and I don't mean to be mean, but
no,
honestly,
that's okay.
I see them drug so much of our children.
It's what we're taught to do.
I know, and so I'm going to be really nice, because I really like you, and everybody here really likes you as well. Everybody's just sending you so much love, and people recognizing. Some people are actually saying that you changed their lives. So, yeah, you must. Were you in the greater good? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, so people remembering you and thanking you. So
thank you guys.
Big lot of love going on here. Now I've forgotten the question is going. I know. One of the things that I've noticed as we do the vaxxed unvaxxed stories is the lack of severe anxiety attacks in the completely unvaccinated, including vitamin K as well. Vitamin K comes in, you've got kind of problems going on. But the absolutely, completely unvaccinated, and the ones who eat well, you tend to ask the parents, we're not seeing this massive surge of I'd like to say from 16 to 19-year-olds of that huge...
I see it, yeah.
I'm sure you do see it. Yeah. It's just everywhere, and they're all on anti-anxiety, medication, everything else. Not seeing it in the completely unvaccinated. I'm sure it's there, but we just haven't seen it.
Oh, no.
What does that say to you?
I don't think it is. Well, so there's
Just saying that just in case someone goes, I got it.
Right. Well, and I don't mean to be all science and whatnot.
People love it because they love you.
It's pretty simple. Amy Yasko is where I learned so much of this.
Yeah, she's wonderful.
And so you have the methylation cycle, which is in every single cell of our body, every single cell. And so you have heavy metals that come in and block those processes. And so those genetics right there, the ones that are in the methionine cycle, the folate cycle, the BH4 cycle, which makes all of our neurotransmitters, and then we go on to the ureasis cycle and then the Krebs cycle. So you get metals that, it's like this and like this and like this. You get metals that come in and block here, block here, block here, block here. And you can't go from point A to point B, so you don't make a certain nutrient. And so, as Amy Yasko says, 50 years ago, okay, we maybe had cases of autism and we had the same genetics, but we had so many fewer cases. And when I say autism, I mean every chronic neurological disease. But we didn't have as many toxins. And so now it takes less genetic defects, less abnormality. We're worried about MTHFR. Well, it's not just, it's all of these. But we have so many toxins that now we're blocking so many points in those cycles. And so back to your question is serotonin and dopamine, the neurotransmitter imbalances in that BH4 cycle is where we make serotonin and dopamine. So you're going to get serotonin imbalances, dopamine imbalances, which are the cause of anxiety attacks.
Did you hear that, peeps? We've done another little study here on the bath.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah, it's just I get really sad when I see Toby and Bella's friends that are suffering and they're on so much medication, and it all started from some event that gave them anxiety or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Or vaccines or whatever it is. I mean, obviously I can't tell them it's vaccines, but they're all drugged up.
Yeah. Yeah, they are. And then if they want to go out and explore the other route, I mean, it's a commitment. And unless you understand the science, you can't understand, so I'm going to address this nutritionally, and it really is going to reverse some of this. And it truly can. It's just, it is a commitment, and it's what you want to do to reverse disease, not just anxiety attacks, but the other things as well.
I have so many questions for you, and I know we have so many people out there.
Yes.
Now, wait, how far away from Austin is your clinic?
Austin, I don't know.
Can you come and visit us one day and have a chat?
I'd love to, yeah.
It's only 6 hours. What's 6 hours in America?
Oh my gosh,
but there's so many more things
now.
I want to talk. I've got so many questions. I've got questions about Asperger's. I've got questions. I've got lots of questions about psychotropic drugs. I've got lots of questions about. I've got my own theories on people that go and shoot people, for example. I really don't want to hear about the gun argument right now. I'm not going to get involved. I'm sticking on this.
Well,
thank you. No, I am not, because you know what? I'm going to say this, guys. I've been bottling this up all day. If I see one more of my British friends or family post a picture of guns and say, America, you disgust me. England, we may not have guns, but we have acid attacks. We have knife attacks.
Yeah.
We are out of control with our knifings, acids, bombings. How dare you judge America? I know I'm not a citizen yet, but I feel like I am. Back off, America.
Think of Aaron Hernandez, the football player, and the violence that he got into, and then they autopsy his brain, and it has the chronic traumatic encephalopathy. The injury we are doing to brains at this early age is not much different from that. And so had he not had those concussions and damaged his brain so much, he probably wouldn't have gone on to kill somebody and then kill himself. So we go back to the gun use and the violence. And
I've just seen so much of it, and anyway, I'd love to talk more about that.
No, I know.
But I'm just really aware that we've got like 101 families out. But please, can we try and come up and stay with us?
I would love to.
How many of you think that Kent will touch her nose, and how many of you think Billy will overhug? Yep. Definitely it's going to happen. These are two people with autism living with us, my son and our other one. But yes, you will.
Thank you so much for everything.
No, thank you. Everyone's absolutely loving you. Okay,
thank you.
We're just going to come off one sec. And then they take it so far because